Okay. So, hi, nice to see you again. I know we met briefly last time, but I just want to kind of go over some quick things before we get started. So, I know you filled out the confidentiality agreement last time when you were here. I know the secretary kind of went over it with you, but did you have any questions about that?
No, I think that was pretty much straightforward for the most part.
Okay, so you understand that anything we talk about in this room is confidential. Even if like your friends or family ask you questions, I can't give them information about what we talk about. As well as like if I were to see you in the community, and I mean, you're welcome to approach me, but I'm not going to approach you just because we do have that confidentiality agreement, and I don't want to break that that agreement that we have. Um, so as long as you're okay with that, then we'll continue to get started. And then I just want you to know that if I do have, this is also on the confidentiality agreement, that if I do have concerns that you're suicidal or homicidal, that I do have to report that. So even though we do have that agreement, that's the only time that I would break that agreement is if you were having suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right. So can you tell me a little bit about what brought you in today?
So my biggest issue, I think, is I have a lot of anxiety over what's going on in the world right now, and I'm still not out of the world. I'm working every day and still traveling to work every day. For the most part, they're allowing us to do some work from home, but my job makes me go there every day. So the biggest thing is how to prevent, bringing that stuff home. There's a small group of us at work, but definitely still at risk with being in and out of the house so much. So that's my biggest thing is I think I have a little bit of anxiety going on from that.
Okay. So when you say things going on in the world, do you mean like the coronavirus issue going
Yeah,
on?
like the pandemic, the huge thing, the world, kind of flipped upside down in my eyes right now.
Okay.
We don't really have it under control, and there's no real answers yet to what's going on for sure, besides that there's a virus happening and spreading so fast.
Okay. So kind of what I'm hearing is that you're still doing your day-to-day life like activities. And doing so, you're kind of having like some anxiety over going from work to home or vice versa. Is that correct?
Yeah, just how to mediate the difference between going to work, coming home, and bringing that stuff while at work. We still have drivers and mail people coming in and out of our facility, and people all aren't local. We have people traveling in from outside of town still to bring have the chance of bringing in different stuff with them. You don't know what everybody does outside of work. At work we can try to mitigate it as much as possible, but what people do after work is a huge concern for myself.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. It's I guess how like what type of facility is it? Is there like a lot of people there?
It's an agricultural facility. There's about 15 people on site every day, max. We have a security guard though, and they travel outside of the county. Even they're from Midland and Saginaw County. That's there 24/7, and there it's an 8-hour shift. So there's multiples people coming in there too. Bringing in different things. So there's lots of activity as far as in and out.
Okay. So there's definitely traffic coming in and out, and
Yeah.
it's not really something that you can kind of prevent, I guess you'd say.
No, yep, we have like normal deliveries and routine deliveries. There's pickups still every day, and there's no way to stop doing that in order to continue business.
Right.
So that's the big thing. Is my biggest thing is what do people do outside of our facility? Not necessarily what's happening in our facility, but what are people doing? Are they abiding by the rules? Are they staying home? Are they going out around town after work? You don't know that. People can only say so much.
Right. Yeah, I definitely understand that part. Is your I don't know, what is your position there at work?
I am kind of a manager. I am a manager of a certain department, and that department allows interaction with multiple different people of all over the facility, outdoor and indoor, and coming and going from the facility myself. So even if I am able to work from home that day, there's still times during that day I still should report on site at some point during that day. So that's a big thing for me is managing people on top of certain departments as well.
Okay. So kind of what just to try to understand what your position is you're like a manager, supervisor type person. So people report to you, correct?
Yep, correct.
And then you can't really like you can work from home, but you can't work from home, correct?
Yeah, they've given me access to work from home, but there's still times during the day. Being an agricultural facility, we have live crops there that we still have to tend to, and that makes me have to go there and make sure everything's going as far as like watering the plants and making sure everything looks healthy and there's no issues, pesticides, that we have to apply, stuff like that.
Okay, so you have a lot of duties on site that you have to take care
Correct, which doesn't allow me to fully work from home and be, stay at home policy that's in place right now.
of. Okay. So would you say like 50% of the time or like during a week span, how much do you think you could work from home and like for how long?
I could probably do 20 hours max at home, and that's,
Okay.
a certain amount of hours, half your time. I work a 40-hour week on average or more, and that would be half my time at home max that I could spend at home.
So how do you feel about the 20 hours that you get at home being away from everyone?
I think it helps to a point, us to limit the amount of people that are on site at one time. We kind of are starting to like shift work more. We usually always worked 8 to 4:30 or 5, and now we kind of have shift work in place to decipher the amount of people that are on site at one time, which is helping definitely. I feel, but still, it's the anxiety of what to do,
Mm-hmm.
or how to communicate with people that are coming and going. Even at home, we have like our FedEx and UPS driver dropping off packages, and how much do you sanitize, and what protocols do you follow out at home outside of work.
Right, because there's so much out there right now that I'm reading that all the CDC recommendations and all these things on social media, and you're trying to follow it to the
Right.
best of your ability, and I'm sure your company is trying to do that as well. But it's just really hard, like you said, to manage the people that work for you as well
Mhm.
as you to try to limit the amount of contact and
Right.
all of that stuff. Would you say that your company is taking precautions?
I think they were a little delayed at first with taking precautions, but I think it's starting to sink in now that there are precautions that need to be taken and need to be like mandated. We did have like a conference call this week with the whole team, and to our corporate supervisor, who also chimed in, is doing what he can to make stuff happen as fast as possible. Um, I know I am lucky to have a job still. There are a lot of people that aren't, are going to have to file for unemployment because the company's had to shut its doors
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So yes, I think the company is taking precautions now as fast as possible. They're trying to, keep up with the government in the state, have to communicate with the U.S. the president, the Congress. There's just a lot of steps that have to be taken. I'm understanding it now, but at first I didn't feel like they were moving fast enough. So that's helped a little bit.
Okay.
For sure.
So would you say that your anxiety has where would you say that you're at today with your anxiety?
It depends on the moment. There's my general manager that I report to is really following it, is really involved in the medical field, and he'll, mention stuff and topics that really, get me thinking about it and get me going on, the next step and what's going to happen next in the world. And he definitely is one that I trust for his knowledge, but he definitely, spikes my anxiety when I talk to him about the current topics in the world right now.
Okay.
As far as the COVID.
So kind of what I'm understanding as far as your supervisor or
Yeah.
manager is that you can kind of lean on him in a way to kind of ease your anxiety, but then also it kind of triggers your anxiety in a way.
Right.
Is
Yeah,
that correct?
absolutely.
Okay. So how do you feel like when he calls you, kind of like are you in a panic when he calls?
At first I definitely was more panicked, but now it's, I kind of just am taking it one string at a time. Yeah, I do definitely get a little anxiety, when he calls, because he calls at random hours of the night. That's part of our company policies, open door policy, we are able to call each other at any time of the night if there's an issue or per se, hearsay, thearsay. But yeah, it definitely spikes my anxiety a little bit for sure.
Okay, so I hear that like you're you're not just stopping at 5 o'clock. You're continuing to work like even later, like 8, 9.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that correct?
there's some nights that we're communicating via email or on the phone about what the next day is going to bring, and especially with this COVID, we're putting different policies in place, so we need to communicate that with the other staff members of how to go about the next day that's coming on. The government's changing. Sometimes you don't get a report. We don't get a report from the CDC till after business hours, so that brings up a lot of anxiety for the next day of oh my gosh, we have to get everything in line before the next day to communicate with our employees.
Okay. So are you in the role where you relay like the next protocols down to your employees?
Yeah, I have a lot of team under me of certain like people in the company. So I have 3 people under me that I relay information to,
Okay.
and then the other assistant managers will relay to their team as well. So yes, I have that. That's one of my duties is to relay the information that we decide on down.
And how do you feel about that?
That's a lot of anxiety that is huge on me, and it really stirs me up and gets me going. Especially when they question me on different stuff and I don't have the answers because I'm still waiting back, but I'm relaying as much information as I can to them.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's really hard, I guess, to say that you're in a position where you're waiting too to know what to tell them,
Right.
and then if you have them coming at you saying, what do we need to do? Why aren't you letting us know? I'm not really sure if that's like the case, but I can see where that would cause your anxiety to rise a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just don't know the answer and you feel bad because you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And you have to relay that to them, and they're questioning you about multiple different things, and it's multiple people on the team that you have to relay this information to.
Yeah. So do you feel like your fellow employees are concerned about the COVID?
Oh, absolutely. Overall, as a team, we're very, very nervous. I feel like we have cases now in our county, which really brought anxiety to the whole team as a whole. Once we had cases that happened in the county, prior to that, I think people were kind of getting it, but now that we have cases close to home, that's really setting in for them.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener when you see those cases in your county kind of pop up, and it's also hard to know like what news is good news and what's real. So people are getting miscommunication and not really understanding like what's correct and what's not. So I've seen a lot of conflict there. Have you kind of had to deal with helping others with their anxiety kind of at work?
Not really a ton. That kind of goes up above me when we're at work and physically out. It's the off, that time between the end of day and the next morning is when I have the most on me, as far as other employees relating to me.
Okay. So you don't really have like their anxiety, their home life stress. You may know their thoughts about COVID, but you don't really have to deal with that like personally.
Yeah, I try not to.
Okay,
To help
good.
with my anxiety. So.
Good. I think that's a really good step. Number one, to kind of find a way to start to kind of ease your anxiety. I know it's kind of nice though because you don't have that on your shoulders as well coming down from your supervisor. So I think that already having that like, okay, I don't have to really deal with them. They're their own person. If they do have some anxiety, you can move it up to your supervisor. Yeah, good. Absolutely. That's really good. I think that's honestly like a good start there, to be able to kind of start coping with this because I mean I'm not a nurse or a doctor or anything, so I'm not sure where this is gonna go, but I think this is just kind of the start of it.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about the progress of the COVID?
Definitely. I know as of today, like we're higher than China as of right now in real time, and that's pretty sad, in my opinion, for the U.S. is not handling it properly. I don't think people are taking it serious enough. They didn't hop on the ball fast enough when we saw how fast it was spreading overseas.
Hmm.
When we come here, everyone thinks it's because it's the U.S. Everything's, land of the free, home of the brave. It's gonna be great. It's not. We were not prepared on how to handle this, and it's spreading excessively faster than anywhere else in the world.
So I know that this week, I believe it was this week, Monday, they put a stay-at-home order in. How do you feel like that has contributed to your anxiety? Like, has that helped? Has it made it worse?
I feel like that's almost made it worse because people. I feel like if it's at that point for the government to issue that, people need to respect that, and people are not respecting it nearly enough as they should be. It's essential people, and people are making themselves essential, and I feel like they aren't as essential to the world as everyone's essential. But when you put a place like that, an order in like that, they need to really respect it, and I don't feel like people are respecting it enough or smart enough about it. Everyone thinks it's just going to blow over, or we're in a rural area, so it's not going to hit us as hard. It's not true. It can go through mail. It can be on anything. So
Hmm.
even going to get your mail every day is something really need to think about, and that's things like that that make it worse for me. Because if the government's put an issue out there, then obviously it's something bigger than we've ever seen before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an eye-opening experience. I feel like I'm personally learning every day something new to do, something new to learn. So it's really hard to keep up. But yeah, I agree with the whole stay-at-home order. I feel like maybe for you, it's it could be triggering because you don't know. It's an unknown. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And like you said, it's if we're higher than China. Is that what you correct?
Yeah,
Um,
from my knowledge, absolutely.
like where is it going to go from here? And I can see where you're kind of like, okay, this isn't really what is it helping at
Yeah.
this point? So do you feel like when you were explaining like essential versus non essential, have you like been in contact with someone that you feel like isn't shouldn't be working, or like you're having a little bit like anxiety feeling about people out in the community that really don't need to be out in the
Yeah, I
community?
just feel like I've, drove through town on my way to work the other day, and there was a lot more people out than I thought. We live in a very, small community overall, and going through town, I feel like they shouldn't. I mean, we have no hospital, we have one little medical facility. Other than that, there not much that should be out. Yes, farmers are a big thing. As I work in the agricultural business, that's something that they need to be doing too. But there was so many people out and about that I thought, as far as like shelter in place. But then again, that's kind of been vague. I was talking to my mom the other day, and they don't really know what does shelter in place mean. Are you able to drive around town and just not get out and communicate with people, or does that mean strictly do not leave your property? It's kind of very vague on what it
Mm-hmm.
means as far as what does shelter in place mean. So then that's another trigger of should that I try not to think about that kind of stuff, but that's another
Yeah.
thing of really what does
Right.
it mean and how serious should people take it.
What is your interpretation of the stay-at-home order, or essential versus non? Like, what is your interpretation of
I
it?
feel like people shouldn't leave. I mean, you should barely be able to go get groceries. You should get the bare minimal that you can. You should never leave unless you have to. We're gonna have to completely shut down everything in order to halt this or
Mm-hmm.
slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna completely get rid of the virus now, but you're gonna be able to mitigate it as much as possible by shutting stuff completely down.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like different verbiage needs to be used as far as shelter in place. It needs to be like a strictly lockdown and not able to leave your home but the bare minimum that is like the medical field and the agricultural business.
I feel like you're very passionate. Like I feel like you definitely have read some good sources and you kind of know exactly what's going on. Have you has it been where you feel like it's kind of like taking over?
At times, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's where everywhere you turn and everywhere you think, you have to think about the virus, whether it be good or bad. As far as good, would be like the next step in keeping stuff clean. So does that mean, like spraying everything off with alcohol or Lysol or, a disinfectant? Does that mean wearing rubber gloves? Does that mean mask?
Mhm.
We've now put a policy in at work that we all have to have gloves and mask on at all times.
Okay.
And that's, something that I feel is going to help.
Mhm.
It's not going to stop it, but it's going to help slow stuff down. And when you work on a small, knit, close team, that you have to put things in place like that.
Yeah, I think it's great that a huge part of you is work, and a huge part of this whole virus is taking action and putting those plans in place and protocols and precautions. And I'm happy to hear for your sake that um, you have to wear a mask and you have to
Mm-hmm.
have gloves, and spraying yourself or whatever you need to do, because I think for you, I think that's what you need. I think you need a little bit of, okay, we are taking those steps. We are listening to the
Yeah.
recommendations, to kind of put you at ease going into work, knowing, okay, like I have some type of, pre- precautionary measure, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
going in.
Yeah, I mean, someone has to start by doing it. That's
Mhm.
take one person, to break the chain of not doing it and respecting the whole role of cleanliness.
Mhm.
Um, we should have been washing our hands 20 seconds prior to this, but they have to put a,
Mhm.
thing and stay 6 feet away from people. You shouldn't be in people's face,
Mhm.
So that's all things, but it takes that person to follow those rules in order to break the chain of it, stopping it or mitigating it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like, um, maybe, I mean, for me, kind of also not only just eye opening, but life changing, like putting yourself back into that perspective of, okay, wash your hands, you need to wash the fruits and vegetables, and, you know, be using Clorox wipes or whatever, and staying your distance away from people. I mean, and I think it's also really hard too, because it is flu season, so allergy season.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard. I know I have allergies, going around sneezing, thinking, okay, what do I need to do to be able to, you know, guard myself from,
Yeah.
all the.
Yeah, you need to think about it as yourself and not necessarily others. When people say that they don't really need to wear a mask because they're not sick, and you can carry the virus too. So, I mean,
Mhm.
start by thinking about yourself and not of others if you feel like, it's not. Think about you getting it versus someone else getting it if that's how you have to do it,
Mhm.
in order to help yourself believe in it more that it's real and we need to wake up about what's happening in the world.
Yeah. So I heard you trying to like take a few steps back. I heard you talking about how you talked to your mom on the phone the other day. Do your parent Is it just your mom, or do you have
My mom and dad are together still.
okay.
Yep.
So do your parents live close in the area?
Yeah, they live about 10-15 minutes from
Okay.
us.
Okay, so they're definitely on lockdown quarantine. So how do you feel about having like close family members that are
Well,
doing the
my
same
dad
thing?
is a type 1 diabetic, so he's at huge risk for this disease, as well as I have a grandfather that has had heart problems in the past. So both of them are at huge risk, and I think that they need to, really take precautionary measures more than others about
Mhm.
not going out and not being involved. My parents own their own business, so that's been super hard for them. They still have to go there and
Mhm.
do payroll and, communicate with emails and phone calls. They don't have their office isn't open, but they still have to go out, because they do own their own business and they both work for the business.
Gotcha. So they're still active, going out because they have to.
Yeah.
Are they still working then?
Minimal.
Okay.
I think they would consider themselves non-essential,
Okay.
so they've kind of lowered it, but to do as minimal as possible.
Okay.
Still communicating, but not as much.
So that's good. I mean, that they're also, following, the protocols and all
Yeah.
of that stuff. Do you feel like as a son, as their son, that you need to like take care of them, like check on them? I don't know your relationship,
I
so.
don't feel like we're at that point. Like I need to take care of them. I mean, they're very healthy for the most part,
Mhm.
besides their underlying conditions. But if it came down to it, I definitely would, make them stay home if there was any sort of signs or symptoms or
Mhm.
hear something I hear, definitely make them stay home, and I would, go out and get the groceries and risk my healthy younger body versus them going out when they're at much higher risk than myself.
Okay. So I feel like you guys have a good, decent relationship
Yeah,
to where,
absolutely.
if you had to, if they were in that instance where they needed something that, you would go get it for them. Do you feel like it, like kind of not as, worried, I guess, about them because they are so healthy? I know you said your dad's a
One.
type 1 diabetic. Um, so do you kind of feel like, your anxiety about them, like you don't really have to worry about them?
Yeah.
Does that kind of like take a little weight? Because
Definitely.
I know sometimes, we worry about our parents, more than we should. So I'm not sure kind of like where you're at with
No, I think they're
worrying about them.
overall, they're very healthy people. They're very active people, and they're very intelligent and not going to use common sense when necessary. My mom was talking about, the grocery pickup instead of going into the store. So they paid the extra money to have grocery pickup curbside instead of going into the store. And I think that was a huge, eye opener for myself that my parents are on the right track and seeing it. Before I watched a video on how to handle cleaning the groceries when they come in, and I shared it with them and hopes that would help them, see how serious it is and that they need to take the extra precautionary measures. So
Yeah.
no, as of right now, I don't feel like, they're at risk themselves thinking about it. My grandparents are a little bit different story though.
Okay.
They don't. I don't think they really see what's going on or know it full hand. They were out like they were on vacation out at a bar on St. Patrick's Day, and that's kind of when it was first, coming to the U.S. and making us aware of what was going on. And I just don't think that they're fully thinking about it. And I think when they come back here, they'll see more back home that it's, not easy to get by as far as, we need to have grocery pickup for them or have someone go get their groceries. They should not be out at all doing this. So I worry more about them and helping them out versus where my parents are right now.
Okay. So your parents are like, okay, you're fine. They're taken care of, but it's your grandparents that you're like, okay, do they, how do you feel about them not really taking the steps that you're taking?
I think that my parents will kind of, shake it into them a little bit more, but they live closer to us too. So, I've thought about definitely once they get back to offer, going to get them groceries and going to get stuff for them and cleaning it prior to taking it over there, doing all that because they probably wouldn't do all those extra steps needed that we should be doing on this day and age where my mom and parents, like my mom and dad, would definitely take those precautions for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I think just by you telling me that you're willing to do those things for the people that you care about is really important. It takes someone to kind of go through something like this epidemic. I mean, it's crazy overall. The whole thing is it's very interesting, and it's people have their opinions, and I respect that. But I just want you, like, good for you for taking the steps that you're taking and wanting to take those steps by like washing the groceries, and those are the things that people don't always think about that they need to be doing, or the underlying things that they're missing.
And that's what gives me anxiety. So, it helps to know that I'm doing it. You have no idea what other people are doing, but to know that I'm doing it and my family is hopefully doing it, then that puts me at a little bit more of ease, definitely, with my anxiety.
That's great. So yeah, so you already find like ways that you can kind of cope with it, intertwined in there, which is great. So that's really great. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on was how, like, I know sometimes everyone is different, but with anxiety, sometimes people have a hard time sleeping. How is that going for you?
It depends on the day. If I have like a say flare up at work and I come home and have to deal with the issue of there was a new release, I have to let the staff know. Those nights are definitely harder for me to sleep. I'm tossing and turning, usually off early, and then go into work early, hoping to avoid some of the people, and then leave early so that there's not overlap. So it all leads into that. If I should get there earlier, to avoid half the staff members as far as contamination, limiting the amount of people on site at one time in our facility. So always thinking about that. Definitely, I've slept worse lately with this COVID thing, but I'm coping with it as much as I can.
Okay. So do you have any type of like support at home, or because sometimes like with like insomnia, sleeping issues, sometimes it's nice to have someone like, okay, put the work down, go to bed, try to get an extra hour of sleep or whatever. Do you kind of have that?
Yeah, my wife's very supportive when it comes to that, definitely.
Okay, good. So have you had, prior to the COVID, did you have problems sleeping before?
Here and there, but my anxiety is definitely the worst. I mean, which brought me in today, as it is right now. It's really bad right now, overall. But there's some days are better than others, but overall, it's not great right now. But I think it's a lot to do with what's happening in the world with this pandemic and this COVID-19 stuff.
Okay. So if we could think of like best case scenario with this whole COVID thing, what does that kind of look like for you?
I'd hope that it'd slow down the spread. I think, but in order to get that locking down, I think that would be a huge like anxiety relief of like complete lockdown in those very core essential people are the only people to leave. I mean, like police monitoring stuff and pulling people over if they're on the streets. I think it's gonna have to come to that like complete lockdown, and that would be a huge start. That's how it's still spreading overseas, and some of them countries are at complete lockdown, and it's definitely slowed it down. It lives in cool environments and thrives in cool, so it's gonna be a few months before it's gonna stop living, in the environment, to my knowledge. So I think like complete lockdown would be a huge like start to relief for me. But back to normal activities would be a huge thing. I show dogs and travel all over the states and multiple adjoining states, East Coast, all of that, and I'm not able to do that right now. Everything's canceled, so that's a huge anxiety. I got all these dogs that I want to get out and show them and all that. So back to some normal activities would be a huge anxiety relief too, and I don't see that coming anytime soon. So like just a lockdown or more strict precautions would be a next step for anxiety relief.
Okay, so you would think that a complete lockdown would help with the whole epidemic situation to help stop it.
Yeah, we gotta slow it way down. It's not gonna stop, but it needs to be slowed down. It's spreading faster in Detroit, Michigan than it's spread everywhere anywhere in the world. It's spreading so fast down there.
So as far as like your anxiety goes, you would be, at a little bit of the ease, knowing like if there was a complete lockdown, you'd be like, okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Okay.
Even if it meant not working for a little bit, if we gotta do what we gotta do at this time. It's not gonna get better until it gets worse, but it needs to slow down before it gets way worse.
Okay. Yeah. What is when you you said that if you didn't have to work or you stopped working or whatever because of the complete lockdown, how does that make you feel, not working?
It would depend on the length of period. If it was a week or two, I think we would be okay. We would get by. I think the company has some things that we could do strictly from home, and I know like my job could do stuff strictly from home too. There definitely would be because we're agricultural and there's living crops on site. There definitely have to be times that I think some people need to report there for a few hours, maybe just to check everything, and that maybe just need one or two people on site and never interacting at all. But we'll see if it gets to that point. I think we'd be okay, if it was a week or two. More than that, then you got to think about options, definitely. But try not to put myself there.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think recognizing the reality of it and knowing that maybe not working it's going to come to that.
Yeah.
So I think, just coming to terms with the possibility of, I know a lot of people have been talking about unemployment and things, but, worst case scenario, if that has to happen, like, you're already there. You know that could
Yeah.
be real life. So that's good that you're already like thinking about the future and worst case scenario that could happen. So.
Yeah, and our company's like talking. That was a big discussion we had when we talked in the meeting this week. Was what's our future look like if we are under complete lockdown? And the company is trying to put something in place where we will get some pay, even that way we don't have to file for unemployment and go through that. So we will get some pay and severance from the company itself in order to get through this lockdown period if we do get to that. So that was a little bit of a relief knowing that the company is doing their best to try to help us through it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. You can't really say that about a lot of the places, the small town businesses. Like you said, you're from a small town, so all those places that aren't going to get that option.
Yeah.
So that's probably, another, strategy to kind of think about, like, okay, like, it's going to be okay. We will get through this. Even if it's just for a short period, that, in the back of your head, you can still think like, okay, like, at least my work is going to kind of work with me. On that instance.
Yeah, working for the company. I work for a great company, which is a huge anxiety relief. If I was in a position of working for a small company, which I once did before, that would be a lot more anxiety of what my future holds and if the company's going to have to close their doors completely. I feel like a lot of these small businesses that you had mentioned are not going to be able to open their doors back up again, which is very scary for some of those people that have worked in those small businesses their whole life. So definitely working for a bigger company is nice in a way at this point in the world.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. It's going to be hard for a lot of businesses to kind of, build back up the business because some of them are still staying open and paying for, the electricity and, water and all that stuff. So, yeah, I definitely understand, like, working. It's great that you're working for a company that will be able to help you provide for your family in this period that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. What about, like, listening to the news or looking on social media? How are you with those types of instances?
Luckily we don't have TV, so that's a huge thing. I don't have to see the live news, and that would probably make it way worse, and I probably wouldn't watch it even if we did have it right now, because of how booming it is with this COVID thing. I do see it on social media, but the funny memes about it kind of get me through it and make me laugh, when it's time of seriousness, and I totally respect the serious part of it too, and the numbers and what you see coming through as deaths and casualties and people admitted and tested positive and all that. Definitely I stay up on that just because I want to know how fast it's creeping. But the memes and the funny stuff on social media are definitely help me get by and bring down my anxiety level a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. I know, like, the world itself, kind of, like you said, you're taking it serious, but then again, it's like you got to kind of step back and, like, okay, like, we're going to be okay, you got to do, things day by day at this point, taking the precautions, doing what you're doing at work, and laughing about it, even though it's like you said, it's serious, but, by just giving yourself a little bit of ease and laughing about it is just a good way to kind of help the anxiety and bring it back down.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to joke about it, even at work. We're still joking, like we're having our meeting and we're, got a 30-foot circle of people standing there to have this meeting because we all got to stay 6 feet apart and are trying to communicate with a mask over our mouths. And, you just make a joke out of it of we can't hear anybody or talk about anything because we all are muffled and 30 feet apart from each other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can see where that would be a little bit, awkward at times and trying to communicate, when it's serious, and just the social distancing alone is hard, especially when you're in a facility with people and
when
moving
you're in
around.
Close quarters, there's rooms, indoor rooms that we have crops growing in, and they're not that big, so you have to, respect your space and respect other space. Definitely is a big thing when you're not used to that. Used to bumping into people and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something to consider and to keep in the back of your head, I guess. Um, but so for future, I kind of have like a little bit of homework for you. It's about mindfulness. It's just like a small activity that you can do, and I really want you to do it like once a week. Doesn't have to be something that you do every day. But I'm just gonna kind of go through it with you, and then I'm gonna give you a copy on the way out, so you
Okay.
have something to take with you. So it's called like the five senses activity.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is to notice five things you can see, and just to kind of take a step back and think about like a crack in the sidewalk or a shadow that you've never noticed, and just pick five things that you can like visually see, and just kind of think about those things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's the first one for visual. Then the next one is notice four things that you can feel, and as you notice, it starts with five, and now it's to four, and it goes
Okay.
down. So the next one is notice four things that you can feel. So it could be currently feeling the texture of your pants, or the surface that your arms are resting on. So just four different things that you can feel.
Okay.
And then the next one is notice three things you can hear. So if you're outside or if you're at work, just kind of like just take a minute, be mindful of your surroundings, you
Oh, that's
know.
gonna be a good one. Now the birds are out, like making and stuff
Yeah,
happening right now.
yeah,
So
that's a good one. I've been hearing them every morning, so that
yeah.
that would be a good one. Just to take a step back and listen to those in the morning.
Okay.
So then the next one is smell. So notice two things you can smell. So I know this is kind of a weird one, but it could be unpleasant, it could be pleasant. Definitely with the weather changing, there may be different smells.
Yeah.
I know the other day I smelled someone burning leaves, so
Mm-hmm.
that could be one. And then the last one is notice one thing you can taste. So it could be anything. It could be drinking your coffee or the lunch you had, just kind of thinking and taking a step back and really thinking about things all the senses that you're going through.
Okay.
So if you're okay with that,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
I will just one time a week just kind of go through this, or you could break it up, and then we'll kind of go over this next time you come in. So I will give you this handout on the way out. But if do you have any questions before we go?
No, I think today's therapy session was very good. Definitely needed it to get some stuff off my chest and talk about, what's happening and what's really bothering me right now. So that was definitely
Good,
good.
good. I'm glad you came in, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about a little bit of your anxiety. And I think just keep doing what you're doing. And I think by giving you small little pieces of homework and finding things that work best for you
Mm-hmm.
will definitely help with your anxiety in the long run.
Okay.
So
How are you guys gonna stay open much longer, or are you guys gonna just limit the amount of people you bring in through the day?
yeah, great question. So what we're gonna do before you go, the secretary is actually gonna get you to sign like a consent
Mm-hmm.
to do it like visual, like through the computer.
Okay.
But if you don't have access, you can do it through your phone.
Okay.
We're kind of it's like video chatting, but it's confidential.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my office, so if that's something you'd be interested
Yeah,
in,
definitely.
okay, perfect. We'll sign that on the way out. But yeah, if you don't have any more questions, then thank you for your time.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.